Welcome to another episode of Message from Mom, where we're busting the myth that mothers in law aren't necessarily monsters in law. And I'm joined by my couple. Is it by or with? I'm like stumbling over this every week. Let's solve this right now. I'm joined by my or with my
By.
with with
Joined
doesn't
by.
sound correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
joined by.
Yeah.
Any grammarian out there, feel free to let me know what the proper.
It's honestly kind of a tongue twister at the very
Yes.
beginning.
It is,
So
yeah.
Anyway,
I'm glad I don't have to say it.
anyway, I have two lovely co-hosts sitting by my side, and to the left of me is Kelly,
Hi, I'm Kelly. I'm married to Beth's oldest son, Alex.
and to the right of me,
Oh.
yes, and that would be you.
No, I know. Normally you say to the right of me is Chelsea, so I was waiting on that.
I know.
Chelsea.
I'm letting you
Okay.
fill in the blank this week.
Well, I'm Chelsea, and I am married to Beth's middle son, Andrew.
Oh, so these are two of my daughters-in-law, and actually we launched the podcast at the beginning of 2024. So we are available wherever podcasts are, or wherever you listen to podcasts. So it can be YouTube Music, Apple Music, Spotify. Oh gosh, we're on a lot of places that I have never even heard of.
Mhm.
But wherever you listen to podcasts, you can definitely pick us up. But we also film it for YouTube. So if you're watching this on the video version, welcome. And we are going to raise our glass because every week we raise our glass and we toast because we know that you don't necessarily need to be a blood relative to love your relative. So cheers to another episode,
Cheers.
ladies.
Cheers.
There we go. Great. Well, that's actually good.
It is.
Mhm.
So I recently purchased a bottle of non-alcoholic sparkling, or it's brute.
Grape juice, really. Yeah.
That's
It's like
really
grape juice, yeah.
Pretty much sparkling grape
good.
juice.
Grape juice. No, it's sparkling non-alcoholic brute, whatever.
Yeah.
Champagne from the what region was this from?
Oh my
What
God.
year is it? Yeah,
Yeah.
sparkling grape
It's
juice.
the
Okay.
highest quality vintage.
So we actually introduced this series last month, which was in March. So this is April's version, or is this?
This will be May.
Okay,
May's
thank
version.
you.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is non-alcoholic beverage that
We swear.
we're sipping. So I don't know what my issue is right now. Okay, well, we film these podcasts, we batch them out, so I have kind of lost track. But we did introduce it at the beginning of 2024. We're having so much fun.
Yeah.
It's really
Mhm.
just a lot of fun.
It has been a lot of fun.
But we did introduce a series called My First. So we kicked it off with My First Home.
I think that episode came out
Mm-hmm.
today.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, today.
Whatever.
As we're
Yeah.
filming this.
As we're
yes.
filming this, yeah.
We're filming this. Yes, that came out
Yeah.
today. So April. Yes, so you're
Mhm.
absolutely right. So our next one is in May. And that is My First Love.
Yeah.
And we switched it. We originally had it My First Boyfriend, but
Yeah.
but maybe your first boyfriend was not the one
We
that you actually
decided,
fell
yeah.
in love with.
It was a
So-
complete loser. So
right.
we don't want to talk about that.
We don't want to talk about that. So we switched it to My First Love. So we will just kick off the episode with that. And do you want me to lead it off, or do you want
Go
to
for it.
share? Yes, go for
Why
it.
not?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
'Cause I
maybe-
think you probably have the cutest
Yeah.
Well,
love story.
it was absolutely wonderful. While it was moment by moment going on way back in 1975.
Wow.
That's when we first started dating. So I was a junior in high school and he was a senior in high school. And his name was J.R. Dobson, and he was actually J.R. Dobson the third.
Oh.
So yes, and it was honestly, I'm telling you, it was like love at first sight. It was really like one of those cute little teen romance
Really?
novels. Yes.
Okay, wait. So let me just stop you right there for 1 second,
Mhm.
because if it was love at first sight, but you were a junior and he was a senior,
Mhm.
did he like transfer to your school, or did you transfer to a school?
Was it
or
how did you see each
Yes,
other?
yes. So the middle of my junior year in high school, I had to transfer high schools because my parents had moved
Oh, okay.
school districts.
Okay.
Actually, they had moved school districts several years earlier. So they were paying tuition
Mm-hmm.
for me to go to high school. And I think then my dad really realized that college was looming.
Oh,
And he already had, so my older brother was already in college, then he was going to have two. And he was kind of like, and he was in finance, and he was kind of like, he's like, okay, I'm sorry. This is,
you're going to free high school.
you're switching. Yes. So anyway, so I was really quite taken aback by the whole scene of events back then, because I mean, switching high schools middle of your junior year, it's just
Hard.
it was.
Yeah.
And I thought it was just, you know, of course it was the end of my life.
Mm-hmm.
I think actually that's when I looking back, because I've shared this before, when people ask me about my short hair, I chopped all my hair off when I was 17. I'm wondering if I have to retrace it, because it was about the same time
Yeah.
that I had to switch high school.
Yeah, it was like you're like starting over.
Starting over.
Or it was your rebellion against your.
I think it was. I think I was, because my dad teased me for years. He used to call me Joan of Arc, because I just chopped it off in a pixie, and I'd had like waist length hair for years.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, that thought just struck my
Epiphanies happening in real time. Message from Mom.
I think it was
the podcast is
bad.
actually therapy for all of us. So.
That really is an aha moment.
Yeah.
So anyway, I had short hair when I met JR. So I had to transfer high schools, and I met some really darling girls. I mean, they were, you know, young women at the time. Obviously, we were 16, and so
well, paint the scene for us.
Well, I can remember. So I would meet. So I had met them. I'd only been at the high school for a couple of weeks. Met these, you know, two really lovely young girls, and so I would meet them, you know, for study time in the library.
Mm-hmm.
And the first time that I went into the library, I can remember seeing JR seated at, you know, at one of the study tables with his friends, and I was just like mesmerized. And I asked my two new friends, I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, who is that? And they're like, oh my gosh, that's JR Dobson. He's like one of the most popular boys in the school. And I'm like, okay, well, I can see why.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so anyway, so that was my first time that I remember seeing him. So he was always, so I guess he had study hall at the same time that I did, and so he was always in the library when I was in the library. So there was a lot of these, you know, longing gazes, you know.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I would steal furtive, you know, glances at him, and he would do the same with me. So this went on for a couple of weeks too. So being the person that I am, I had to investigate, like, okay, like, does he, you know, what is he? So this was like in January. So basketball was the only sport that was going on at the time at the school, and he didn't play basketball. So I knew he wasn't, like, you know, tied up after school for practices and going off games.
Mm-hmm.
So I just asked around, and so I heard that he had a job at one of our local stores. It was called Shop Style, which would be like a predecessor to Target.
Oh,
But a local one. So I was like, oh, okay, well, I have to make a trip to Shop Style, obviously.
of course.
And maybe I made several trips to Shop Style, right? And then just happened to run into him. You know,
that you worked here.
Yeah. So actually, so that's how we met, and I'll never forget, because he had to wear a vest, a little blue vest.
Oh.
He was probably like, oh my God, what is she doing here? I'm literally so embarrassed right now in my blue vest.
No, but he wasn't that type at all, you know. So he was all like, you know, oh, you know, what are you here, you know, here for? I don't think I said tampons or
Probably that would not probably be the first thing you said.
Oh God.
no. But anyway, so then that's when, you know, so that's actually where we met. And so
that's where we officially
had
a conversation at Shop Style.
Yes, because I was accidentally shopping there on purpose.
Okay.
Accidentally on purpose.
To meet him. Mm-hmm. And so then he asked me, actually shortly thereafter, then he asked for my phone number. And I can't even remember if we chatted on the phone many times before we went out, but I just remember we went out, and I mean, that was it. I mean, I was just head over heels for him. And honestly, it was reciprocal, because I do remember, like, months later, like his friends actually, coming and teasing. They're like, "Hey, Beth, can we have JR back?"
Oh.
And I'm like, "Aw, that's so sweet," because we,
Yeah.
were like spending every waking
Yeah.
moment together. So yeah, so that was the start of my first love, and I honestly have to tell you that I had the rest of my life written out. He was a year older than me, so he graduated from high school before I did, and then went off to college. And he was in pre-med, so so he wanted to be a doctor. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go to school where he's going to go to school. So I applied to the same college. It was a small liberal arts college, so I applied and got in. And yeah, we
Going to
would
school to be a Mrs.
work pretty much, because I was just so, I mean, yes and no, because I still
No, I know.
was,
I'm
yeah.
just joking.
No, but I mean, listen, me going to
What do they call it? The MRS
the
degree?
MRS degree,
MRS,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, well, deciding where I was gonna
Yeah.
go to college, based on my boyfriend. I mean,
Yeah.
that's not usually, and I think my parents were kind of like, okay. But to be fair, it was my dad's fault for making me switch schools, right?
Yes, right. You never would have met JR.
But yeah, so absolutely had the rest of my life written out. We'd go to college together. He'd go off to med school. I'd get a job. We'd just, have just the most amazing life
Mm-hmm.
for the rest of our lives. And I also absolutely loved his family.
Yeah.
So not only did I fall in love with him, but I just fell in love with his family. So he had 2 brothers and a sister, and his mom was like the best thing since sliced bread. I think my mom even got a little bit jealous, because I would always come home and say, "Oh, Mrs. Dobson said this and Mrs. Dobson said that." And I think she was kind of tired of hearing about
Sure.
Mrs. Dobson, right? Because they did everything so much better than me.
Right, of
I mean,
course.
not, but
Yeah.
But it always, I mean, that's
Always
always how you
appeared
feel
that
when
way.
it's not your
Yeah.
house. It's not your family.
Mhm.
So,
Well, whatever happened to JR?
So, well, he went off to college before me, and here I am, so senior in high school, and pining away. We used to write, like, I had a box of his love letters for
oh,
years.
yeah.
I kind of still wish I had them.
Yeah. And
I
you found
know,
them
that would
back.
be-
It would be hilarious
Yeah,
to go
just
back
to go back and read them.
Yes. So we would write each other, a couple of times a week, and and phone calls. I mean, back then it was still,
Yeah.
the phone was on the kitchen wall, and it was like very expensive to call long distance.
Right.
So those were few and far between. But anyway, we bumped along until like April of the following year. And then, I mean, obviously, is what happens. I mean, he met somebody at college.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what the heck am I doing with this dumb,
With this high school girl.
this high school girl?
Have you ever looked him
Right.
up recently? You don't know if
I have no idea. No,
Wow.
interesting.
no
My
idea.
curiosity would. I would be like
Yeah.
I should.
Facebook or
Yeah, I should. So
we'll do that
Or
after
you
this.
can
anybody knows where J.R. Dobson is. So I grew up in Omaha, Nebraska. So I don't know if he's still in Omaha. I mean, I don't live in Omaha. I
Yeah.
don't have any ties to Omaha anymore. So I would have no idea.
It'd
But
be interesting to hear his side of the story.
but he was my first love. And I am telling you, when we broke up, boy, oh boy,
Mhm.
I took it really, really hard.
Yeah.
I mean, really, really hard. And I can remember, because and especially back then, I was, I mean, not as tiny as you, Chelsea, but I was not. I mean, I was like, 5'7" at that time, and weighed like 115 pounds, and so I was on the
Yeah,
I was on
that's
the
small.
thin side. And when we broke up, I mean, I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep. It was one of those. I mean, I was just like a wreck.
Yeah.
And then also too, because it was like, what am I going to do for college? Because it was like,
Because you had made
You had
plans.
planned
I realized
Yeah.
perhaps that wasn't a very good decision.
My
And
goodness.
I'll never forget, because my dad, after this going on for several weeks, and I lost weight, and everybody was getting a little bit concerned about me that I wasn't snapping out of it. And I'll never forget, because I was on my bed being all mopey one night. My mom always did the heavy lifting when it came to any issues with me and heartbreaks or school, friends, anything. But my dad was the one that took it upon himself, and I'll never forget. So he came in, and I can still picture my room lying on my bed, and I had this wicker pendant lamp above my bed. And and so that was on. So it was nighttime, and he just sat down. He used to call me Muffet, so I was Little Miss Muffet. I mean, my dad always had nicknames for everything. So, but I was Muffet from the time I was a baby, and he was just like Muffet. He's like, I know you think that your life is over, but I'm here to tell you, you're 17, and life will go on.
Yeah.
But the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go to University of Iowa. Okay. So I've already decided that because that's where he went. My mom grew up in Iowa City, and that was just kind of a no-brainer. He's like, you're going to apply now. And that's the first thing that we're going to do. And the second thing is you're going to get out of this bed.
Yeah.
And and you're going to be sad, but you're going to be fine. And then at the same time, my bestest friend, Lori, also was realizing that things were spiraling out of control. And it was like, it wasn't that night, but it was like almost like the next night. And she just came over and she's like, this is it. This is what we're doing. We're finishing up our senior year, and we're going to do this, and we're going to have fun. And
That's what girlfriends are for.
right.
Yeah.
And we did. And we really, really did. So yeah, so my heart was broken, and I'm telling you, it took all of college. I was so heartbroken all through college. I didn't
Really?
All through college.
I did not date anybody specifically. I did have. I'll take that back. It's a whole different story. But and actually, he was a quarterback of the football team.
Oh, wow.
It was kind of. So we had kind of this on and off again situation all through college, because we met when I was a freshman. And why? I'll bring him up. So he wasn't my first love, but it was actually very flattering, very romantic. So he had seen me. So I was in a sorority. So I was a Pi Phi. And I was at one of our mixers, or maybe it was a formal dance. It was right before Christmas. And so my brother had fixed me up, because Mark went to the University of Iowa, and he had fixed me up with one of his friends because I wasn't really dating anybody. And I didn't even really want to go, but everybody's like, Beth, you have to go. So I'm like, okay. So Mark fixed me up. So I went to this dance. And I'll never forget, I had a pretty snazzy dress. So it was a handkerchief hem dress. Yeah. And I remember shopping with my mom and picking it out. So at this dance, and I did have a lot of fun. But the next day I get this phone call in my dorm room. And so there was a male voice on the other end, and he's like, is this Beth Belcher? Because that was my maiden name. And I'm like, yes. And he's like, well, this is Doug Piro. And you don't know me. But then he gave me like his all the deeds. He's like, well, I am the quarterback of I think that was one of the first things that he led with.
Yeah.
And that,
That's a strong lead, really.
right. And that he had, that he had seen me at this dance. But if he was at this dance and he was with another Pi Phi, and one rule of
you can't date
it is you do not date anybody that somebody else had dated. So anyway, so he gave me all the lowdown, but I was like, that was pretty cool.
Wow.
Yeah. Should we stop? Can you put this together? I don't know.
No.
We just have to keep rolling.
Yeah, okay. We just had
everybody. We just had lunch delivered, so everybody's welcoming them. So, anyways, just to go back. That was actually very flattering.
Yeah,
that's super flattering.
And he was a lot of fun, but he was also kind of a little bit of a player. So we got together and broke up several times during college, and even after college.
Oh, wow.
That's a whole different story, because he wasn't the love of my life or anything like
that.
But going back, and then so that's why I still was really kind of reeling all through college. I really just kind of had to heal that. It was a trauma. I was seriously traumatized. It really was. Yeah. So anyway,
I love hearing about all of the stories, especially from a long time ago. And it kind of reminds me of, so this is not my story, but my grandparents' story of how they met. And every time they tell the story, I just think it's so, it's the cutest story that I've ever heard. And it would just never happen in today's day and age. Obviously you just match with someone on Hinge or Tinder or whatever.
We have all the different ways.
The dating.
People.
But so they met at a drive-through inn, and my Nana was with one of her best friends. And then my papa was there with one of his good friends. And I guess one of my papa's friend basically went over to their car, and my Nana rolled down, the window, and she thought that he was there to take their order, and he was not. He was there to talk to them and grab their number. And so as soon as she realized that he was there for that, she started rolling the window back up. And my papa's friend goes,
Well, that's the crank window.
Yeah,
That's wild. It wasn't just like, an electric.
I know. And so as she's rolling the window up, my papa's friend goes, well, wait a minute, where can I find you ladies? Like, how can I be in touch? And my Nana's friend that's sitting in the passenger seat goes, well, we live at such and such address if you want to come over tomorrow morning and wash our cars. Well, mind you, they're in North Carolina and it's like in the dead of winter. So it's freezing outside.
Yeah.
So the next morning, it's like 8 a.m. They hear someone outside, and the man is outside washing the car. He's literally washing their car. And my Nana's friend looks outside and she's like, oh my God. She's like, get over here. He's out there washing their car. So he comes up and basically asks him out on a date. And then my papa ended up joining along because, they had to do a double date. And I think funny enough, the guy that came and washed the car with her friend ended up maybe dating just, for a few months and then broke it off. And my Nana and Papa have been married for like 65 years.
That's so
Which
sweet.
is so just the cutest story.
Yeah.
I'm like, how cute is that?
I love that.
That is very sweet.
Anyways.
Yeah. Okay, Kelly. So who was your first love? Who broke your heart?
Well, there wasn't actually any heartbreak with my first love story.
No?
No, because I was married. So I was 23 back in 1999. And I was working at Escape from New York Pizza in San Francisco. And I had been working at the Haight Street store and then switched to the Castro Street store. And there was a man working at the Castro store. And he was so cute. And that was what I first remember about meeting Rob. I just saw him and I was like, oh my gosh, who is that cute boy? And we ended up being coworkers. And that it turns out actually that he was only covering shifts at Escape from New York. He really lived in Arcata, California, which is like 4 hours north of the city. And he was in a band, and that band had been on tour. And he wanted to make some more money before going back to Arcata. So he was just in the city hanging out and picking up shifts at Escape. And this was actually, working at Escape from New York is really one of the best jobs I've had in my entire life. They were the coolest place to work. They treated us so, so well. It was the best restaurant ever. And that's a whole other story though, when we talk about my first jobs or something like that.
Yes.
But I met Rob at Escape, and since he lived out of town, I think we probably worked together for a couple weeks maybe. And then he went back to Arcata. But we exchanged phone numbers. And so we would kind of call each other, and he would come down to the city every now and then because his bandmates lived in San Francisco. So he'd come to practice with them. And so we would kind of see each other then, and he would come back and pick up shifts here and there. So it was a very slow, it took a long time for us to actually start dating and then really get to know each other. But he, he was so interesting, right? Because not only was he cute, but he was interested in similar things to me. And he was in a band that recorded records and went on tour and just had all these really great stories. I was very smitten with him, and he was very romantic. He would take a bus from Arcata just to come and pick up shifts so that we could hang out together, because I would be working and so yeah, he would do this very romantic stuff like that, like a 4-hour bus ride, just so he could come and work a shift that I was working so that we could hang out together. It was just so sweet. So then he ended up moving back to San Francisco and actually asked me to join the band that he was in. And so I became a member of Deerhoof. And so then it was Rob and me and Greg and Satomi, who were also a couple. So we were a foursome.
Okay.
And we played music, and we, recorded and went on tour and played shows and just had a great time. And this was during the first .com bubble. So San Francisco was getting very expensive. And when we decided to get married, we got married in 1999 in June. And we decided, we had this we moved in together, and we had this big map of Alaska, of the state of Alaska, in our kitchen. And I remember Rob telling me, like, I really think, everything is getting so expensive here, this tech bubble, like, we should just get out of here. Let's move. I'm like, okay, where? And he goes, I think we should move to Alaska. I was like, okay, where? So the other thing that goes along with that is that he and I both were in love with the television show Northern Exposure, and so we really bonded over that. Like I had meticulously recorded every episode in reruns off the TV, so I had this like crazy VHS collection of all these. But we really bonded over that show too. But anyway, so he wanted to move to Alaska, and so we literally closed our eyes and picked a spot on the map, and we ended up moving to Homer, Alaska.
You just closed your eyes and picked a spot.
Yeah, we did.
Oh my gosh,
we picked the spot.
What would have been like a really bad spot? Would you have done it again?
We went to Homer. Yeah, probably. We
JK, move it over a little bit.
Over. We went to Homer. Like, so we picked the spot, but then we actually went there for a week just to see if we would like the town and stuff. And we fell in love with it. It was so cute. Yeah. I mean, it's not the town that the TV show Northern Exposure is based on, because that's Talkeetna, but it's very similar to that.
It was very Northern Exposure-ish.
Very, very. And it was on the ocean. Like, we had some stipulations. Like, we didn't want to be in the interior of Alaska. So if we had blindly picked an interior spot, we would have edged it out toward the coast. Yeah.
Chelsea's prediction was right. You would have said, oh, yeah.
We just got lucky though, and picked a spot that was just really perfect. And so we ended up moving there in January. Actually, New Year's Eve, the Y2K. Yeah, so New Year's Eve, 1999. Rob and I boarded a ferry in Bellingham, Washington, and took our dog and all of our belongings up to Alaska
and built a house.
Yeah,
right, your log cabin.
Yeah, so that was that whole thing.
Tune into the My First Home to hear about that.
I didn't realize like how well my first were going to dovetail, but yeah, that worked out. But yeah, it was so we were together for about 7 years, and I think over all of that time moving, we had all the types of things that happen, when you're in married life, the hardships, the, difficult things, all of that. But I think over time, like we had moved back and forth to Alaska a bunch. We had been on multiple tours. We had started a business together, which was a record label. So we were doing all these very like artistic things together, but also living this, this really like bespoke life. Like we were just doing it our way. And while all of that was great, I do think that there came a point at which we just kind of grew apart. And I think it had been happening for kind of a long time. Mm-hmm. Our divorce was incredibly amicable. Like we still remained friends. We even still played in the band together after we broke up. Mm-hmm. So there was not really heartbreak, except for the fact that a marriage didn't last forever. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like there's some certain heartbreak around that, like this thing that we couldn't quite keep on the rails, right.
Right.
So that was more sad to me than I think actually breaking up and not being married anymore.
Was that a hard decision? I mean, I've had friends that I've talked in depth about. I mean, I think that making that decision to end a relationship, I think it's very, very hard, but it's even doubly hard when you're married.
Yeah.
So was that a very hard decision, or was that just like this is the most logical thing that needs to happen right now?
Yeah, a little of both. I think we had spent probably a few months. By this point we had moved to Berkeley, California, and we had an apartment. And I think both of us, we had kind of become like ships passing in the night. Because we were both still running the record label. He had a job at a record distribution company. I was working back at Escape from New York on Haight Street. And so we just were like totally ships in the night. And I think we had just not been honest with each other about it, just in terms of like, we should probably just like re-examine what's going on here. And
was there ever a moment in time where you wanted to make it work, or just it had kind of gotten past the point of return?
I think it just kind of got past that, and we never argued. Like nothing was ever bad. There was never bad blood or anything between us. But I think I'll never forget it. Rob, like one morning, we like got up, and I think I made breakfast or something, and we were sitting in our little dining room, and I think he said something along the lines of like, I think when our lease is set to renew, we should just find separate places.
Oh, wow. Wow.
All right.
I know. But you know, as weird or brash as that might sound, I was like, you know what? That is the smartest thing
Yeah.
that I think I've heard you say in a long time.
Mhm.
Like that. Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
And so it just kind of, like I said, it sounds weird to talk about it now because it does seem very transactional and sort of
Yeah.
callous or cold maybe, but it really wasn't. Like I think we both just respected each other enough to where we realized like, you know what, let's not beat ourselves up over why it did or didn't work out
Yeah.
or why we should or shouldn't
Mhm.
talk it through and keep it together. I think we
Yeah.
were just, we had kind of not only been like ships passing in the night, but I think we both realized that we were wanting to set off on different paths.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think there was any amount of like working it out or staying together that was going to satisfy either of us. Cause I think his path to like continue to do music and to do it in a way that was much bigger than I wanted to commit to.
Mhm.
And then my feelings of like wanting to be back in the city and just kind of figuring out where my life was going
Mhm.
or what I wanted to do.
Mhm.
So we definitely diverged. And I think it, you know, I think it would have been, I think it probably would have
We have a
been
friend. I don't know
worse.
if you can see Ollie, but Ollie just joined us.
I think it would have been worse and forced if we would have tried to, you know, work it out.
Mm-hmm.
So, and nobody wants years of that kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
Mhm.
yeah. So no real true heartbreak. I've definitely been heartbroken before. But I don't think that person was the love of my life either.
Okay.
So, do you know what I mean? Or my
Yeah.
first love,
I do.
you know?
I do. Right, because they're boyfriends and I'd had a couple boyfriends before I met JR. I mean, short-term ones, but there was no head over heels in love
Right.
like I was with JR.
Yeah.
I mean, it really was. I was just like, I mean, honestly, I mean, it's just like, you know, stars were just, you know, every time I saw him, it was just like, you know, stars, there's, oh my gosh, you know.
Yeah.
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 It was the best thing since sliced bread. So, yeah. Yeah. And then it actually, as I said, it took years.
Yeah.
I mean,
to get over it.
honestly, to really just kind of, it was a traumatic event in my life.
Yeah.
And actually, we kind of had the breakup was pretty interesting because he did meet somebody else. And so I had, I guess, my first experience of bullying because she would call me.
Oh.
Okay. So why was I dumb enough to take the phone call? I do not know, but she called me several times and
Oh my gosh.
yes. And I'm just like, and, you know, just telling me that, you know, that he didn't love me anymore, that he loved her. And I'm like, I know, you know, it's like,
gosh.
yeah, when I look back, I'm like, boy, what
Horrible.
a ninny I
That
was.
is horrible.
But I was. I mean, I was just that devastated.
Yeah.
I would let somebody come and take
Yeah.
salt and pour it on the wound.
Right.
But obviously, he did still have some feelings for me.
Or else she wouldn't have called you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
She was.
he must have been ambivalent about it.
Yeah.
But anyway, I mean, it was meant to be because then I did meet truly the love of my life,
Yeah.
and I actually married him.
Yeah.
Years later.
Yeah.
But yes. But okay, Chelsea. So, what is your first love story?
Well, okay. So actually, I think you just put it very well. You just said something that I'm like, okay, yes, that's exactly how I feel on this topic, where you said, I've been heartbroken before, but I don't necessarily know if I was in love with them. So, after you kind of stating that, I'm like, okay, I'm going to route this in the direction that I was going to go before. But I actually do think that my first love is Andrew, who is my husband now. And there were two people that I dated for like a decent amount of time, both of them prior to Andrew. But like looking back on it, I don't think that I was in love with either of those two people. But definitely was very heartbroken by both of those two people.
Yeah.
But yeah, but I feel like with Andrew, things were just different than they were with, you know, the two guys prior to him. Mainly because I felt like I could kind of be myself.
Yeah.
I don't know if
that's a big one, isn't it?
Yeah. I felt like a breath of fresh air, almost like
It's huge.
Because I'm kind of a weird, quirky person once you like get to know me. And I don't really let a lot of people see like the weird, quirky side of me. It's only like the people closest to me and I think I've mentioned this in like a past podcast, but, you know, I was a quiet kid growing up, like very quiet in school. And even at like my daycare, I think they would come to my mom and they're like, does she ever talk? And my mom was like, what are you talking about? She talks all the time. Can't get her to shut up at home. But so, I mean, I've always been like that my whole life, where it's like the people I'm closest to, I really open up to. And I felt like with Andrew, I really could, open up to him.
Yeah.
But yeah, we matched on Hinge. So that's how we met, you know, your typical dating story
In the 21st
nowadays,
century.
which I'm kind of thinking back, the first two guys. So the very first one I met, when I was 20, I want to say, and he was like my first actual heartbreak. I don't think I was in love with him. Maybe at the time I thought I was in love with him, but I don't think I actually was, like looking back.
Yeah.
I think I was more like infatuated by the idea of us together and like maybe like, oh, I think I also was very infatuated by the fact that he was like 5 years older than me. And I had just graduated, I want to say from, I was 20, maybe I was 20 or 21. I had just graduated from Alabama, and I had like a semester before I went to New York to go to grad school. And I had met him during that time, like at the very beginning of the semester, because I graduated a semester early. And so he had a job and he had money, and like he had a very, like he was doing very well for himself, especially for like a 25-year-old. And I think I was like, oh, wow, like this is cool. Cause we actually met out at a bar. And so that intrigued me because
a Buckhead bar.
A Buckhead bar.
You have mentioned that before.
Buckhead bar, Fido in Atlanta. But so that definitely intrigued me. But then I went and we obviously, you know, would see each other every time I'd come back home from school, and he would come up to visit me in New York, and we'd like talk to each other almost like every day. But yeah, I mean, I think that was just more of almost like an infatuation rather than actual love. But I definitely got heartbroken by him once we finally were like, okay, yeah, this is not it.
This isn't working.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes hindsight to look back and realize that you didn't actually, because your feelings at the time can have you running in a direction of, I'm so in love. And then you look back and you're like, was I really?
Especially not like in your early 20s.
Yeah.
You know, and then, I mean, there was the second one that was just, that was definitely not love, but he definitely did some damage on me for sure. Probably more so than the first guy. But yeah, with Andrew, I mean, it just like everything, not necessarily was like easy, but just like everything flowed very well together. We matched on Hinge. We went on our first date. We went on a second date, and then we took a trip to Asheville, you know, and then we did an extended date. And then basically from there, because this was COVID, it was like every other weekend. Okay, you come to Atlanta, I come to Athens. You come to Atlanta, I come to Athens. Until maybe like 6 months later, then we were like, let's move in together.
Yeah,
so,
I remember.
Yeah.
You got your cute little townhouse in Roswell.
We did. We got our townhouse in Roswell. And we always joke because like the last maybe like month of living in that townhouse, we were like, this place is just a complete dump. But
that's because you'd purchased your first home.
I know, but
it was a cute.
Oh, it was so cute, and it was perfect for the time frame that we had it. And when we first moved in, I remember being so excited because it was in historic Roswell, and we would go and just walk to downtown Roswell, and we had so much fun. But yeah, got our first dog there, Asher, our English bulldog, and he's maybe the only thing that's tried to take us down relationship wise.
I know. Nothing like disagreeing on how to manage your pet. Just wait for children, because that's also an interesting, that's a whole other kettle of fish there. But yes, you can have very different views of how to take care of your dog, cat, or train them or not train them. Let them get on the bed, not get on the bed. Yeah, there are a lot of things that you will
that we'll run into.
That you'll be faced with, yes, with that. But it's a nice precursor. I do think that dogs are.
Oh, dogs are definitely.
Yes.
I mean, I'm glad that we both love Asher like so much. Like, I mean, I wouldn't give him back for anything.
Right.
But
Andrew might.
Some days he might.
Oh, he wouldn't.
He would not.
We know that he wouldn't.
I know.
Any pet owner would think that at some point or another.
Yeah.
Because
everyone needs a break.
oh wow.
Everyone needs a break.
Yes. Or they finally just do enough damage across the line where you're just like, what is going on here?
I know. He hasn't done anything like that yet.
That's good.
But yeah, I mean, we I don't know. It is interesting though to think like what actual like love is compared to like what you think love is when you know when you're growing up. And and I think love is more than, I think what I've learned, at least as I've gotten older, is love is a lot more than just that infatuation with someone, and that like it's acts of service. It's just a big broad range of things that encompass the word,
and it has to continue to grow. And that's what love really is. It continues to grow and evolve, and sometimes you're working on it and sometimes you're not. And honestly, I mean, just even those, the infatuation or the butterflies or, whatever, however you want to term that. I mean, I think it comes and goes. I mean, and things get rekindled, I mean, at different junctures of your,
for sure.
Of your time together. So, because I just look back with Mac and there were, there's always this, and that's why they do say that you can't build your marriage on that butterfly or those, just the feeling of love. Because it's much deeper than that, but it does come back.
Right.
So, I mean, it kind of goes,
ebbs and flows. For sure.
I think it's nice getting older and having had at least enough relationships, whether long-term or shorter term, to where, and dealing with heartbreak and getting stepped on and, and then also maybe being a heartbreaker. All of those lessons give you so much more insight into how you can cultivate a loving marriage long term.
Yes.
So many things just seem insurmountable when you're young and you don't have a lot of experience in relationships, and then once you have a few, or once you have one that's very long and you get to experience all of those ups and downs and trials and tribulations, you kind of have a much more well-rounded, I guess, idea of what love is, rather than just that feeling of it.
Exactly. Right? And I mean, and now that I am out back dating, I mean, and I've had to wrestle with this, concept. I mean, is there only one love of your life in your life? And I have wholeheartedly come to the conclusion that no,
I don't think there is.
There isn't just one, because that would be, honestly, that would be looking for the needle in the haystack.
Right? That's crazy to think that, because there's just too many people.
Yes, there's too many people out there. So yes, so I am firmly convinced that there is a next love in my life.
I think timing plays a big role into not just like love, but also just, how love can form. Because I mean, I think about this with Andrew. I don't think that we would be together had I met him when he was in New York. If I lived in New York, and I don't think it would have been.
He wasn't ready.
He wasn't. Yeah, he wasn't
probably
ready.
Weren't ready either.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that, and it would have been no fault to either person. I think it's just, like you said, he wasn't ready.
Right.
I maybe wasn't ready. And would we have gone on a couple of dates? Sure. We probably would have gone. Maybe we would have dated for 6 months. But then after that, I think it would have been like, okay, this is not working, because you are hanging out with your friends. I'm hanging out with my friends. The timing of our relationship was perfect. I mean, everything was just completely it was lined up by COVID. We had nothing else to do. It was like, okay, well, let's hang out together. Right. But it was great because we really did get to know each other very quickly because of that.
Spending so much time together. Yes. And not having any distractions really either.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. And there are two things that I think make a brilliant relationship. And I think you're ready and you're right for each other.
Mhm.
And then, as you said, when the timing is there, everything just goes, it
Yeah.
just falls into place. It's just
Yeah.
like, it's truly the easiest thing in the world.
Yeah.
It
So
really
while
is.
relationships in general aren't always easy,
Mhm.
there should be some amount of ease with which you kind of enter into a
Yes.
relationship with someone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, well, this was fun. I
Yeah.
like the first series. It's very fun.
Yeah,
What should we talk
stories are
about
good.
next month?
I don't know. I have to
Well,
think
hello,
about that.
Ollie.
Hi.
Maybe the first cat.
Hi. Our first pet.
No, definitely not.
Our first
Definitely
pet.
not.
No first pet,
No, we could do first pet. We could totally do a first pet.
or we could do
Maybe-
first car.
Or but
First
also
car.
maybe someone will want to make a comment
Mhm.
when
Oh,
this
yeah.
video gets posted, and we'll talk about what you guys want to hear about.
Yeah. So if you have any suggestions, leave it in the comments down below because we'd love to hear from you. And as always, please know we love it when you tune in. We do love to connect with you. And I hope that you tune in wherever you listen to your podcast because we are here week after week with Message from Mom, where we are busting the myth that mothers-in-law aren't necessarily monsters-in-law. And thanks, ladies, for another fun episode.